How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to 2A News Now, and I really do appreciate you taking your time tuning into my video. And here at 2A News Now, you get your Second Amendment news straightforward and to the point with no BS added in. Attorney generals and politicians from 27 states sent a letter to the ATF to withdraw its proposed rule, definition of engaged in business, as a dealer in firearms. A coalition of Republican attorneys general and lawmakers from 27 states urged the ATF to strike its proposed gun control rule, calling it an arbitrary and capricious violation of the Second Amendment. Under the notice of proposed rulemaking titled Definition of Engaged in the Business as a Dealer in Firearms, which was signed by U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland on August 30th, any person that sells a gun for profit to anyone else, including family members, would be considered engaged in the business of dealing in firearms. As a result, a public seller would be required under federal law to obtain a federal permit, conduct a background check, and complete a 4473 form for each transaction. In a letter dated Thursday, Republican Attorneys General Chris Kobosh from Kansas, Brianna Byrd from Iowa, and Austin Knudsen from Montana led the demand for immediate withdrawal of the ATF's unconstitutional regulation, arguing that the sale of firearms among individuals for profit is protected by the Second Amendment, although long-standing regulations of large commercial enterprises that sell firearms might be consistent with the Second Amendment, as the Supreme Court decided in District of Columbia versus Heller in 2008. That is not what this proposed rule does, the letter said. This proposed rule seeks to require a license of every individual who sells a firearm for anything the department sees as a profit, to include currency, exchange of another firearm, or a service. The Attorneys General added that the ATF's notice doesn't explicitly reference the Second Amendment in the proposed rule. Therefore, according to the letter, the federal agency had no intention to comply with the Constitution nor abide by the Supreme Court's recent ruling on gun regulation. In the 2022 decision of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, the High Court overturned New York's gun law that once required individuals to show proper cause when applying for a concealed carry permit. As a result, any legal burden on an individual's conduct is unconstitutional unless the regulation is consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. According to the court's opinion, the proposed rule doesn't even attempt to do this. The Republican prosecutors wrote on the last day of the proposal's 90-day comment period. The ATF did not mention either Heller or Bruin in its notice. The Attorneys General also said that the rule is unlawful under the Administrative Procedure Act, which instructs courts reviewing regulation to reverse any agency action shown to be arbitrary, capricious, and abuse of discretion, or otherwise not in accordance with the law, according to the Act's language. In addition, the letter called the proposed rule bad public policy that attempts to criminalize the lawful selling and purchase of guns, while the Department of Justice fails to prosecute violent criminals to the fullest extent of the law. If the department was serious about combating violent crime, it would focus on enforcing the laws that are already on the books to hold violent criminals accountable for their actions. That would be the type of work that would save lives, the chief prosecutors wrote. Unfortunately, the department has instead targeted innocent people who sell firearms. That is not only unlawful, but it's wrong, and the department must change course. The ATF proposal expands upon the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, modified definition of engaged in the business of selling guns, which means anyone can be classified as a firearms dealer if they have the intent to predominantly earn a profit. After the Senate and House passed a bill in June 2022, President Biden enacted the gun control legislation, ostensibly to crack down on gun violence in the United States. The letter comes more than 2 months after Senator Roger Marshall, a Republican from Kansas, and 6 other Republican senators sent one to Merrick Garland, also arguing the proposed legislation is constitutionally unsound and completely unauthorized by Congress. Federal lawmakers argued the ATF is purposefully misinterpreting the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act's definition of firearms dealer in order to place firearms purchasers in its purview, despite the legislation's exemption of individuals who occasionally engage in firearm transactions. Besides Knobloch, Byrd, and Knudsen, the other 23 undersigned Republican attorneys general include the following. I'm now going to put the list up on the screen so you guys can take a look at it, and let me know in the comments section if your state is represented. And if your state is not represented, you should get a hold of them and ask them why. Arizona is the 27th state to be represented in the list of signatures, with State Representative Ben Toma and State Senator Warren Peterson also signing on to the official correspondence. The proposed rule is a flagrant violation of every American's rights under the Second Amendment, ignoring the very concerns our founders had when they ratified it, rather than meaningfully addressing the rise in violent crime occurring around our country. The Biden administration is once again criminalizing law-abiding citizens. And thank goodness we have these representatives that will always fight federal overreach and attempts to erode our gun rights. A big thank you to all of these politicians and attorneys general for sending this letter to the ATF about another proposed unconstitutional ruling. Let me know what you think about today's video in the comments section down below. And I appreciate everybody's support with the channel. You guys are always crushing it by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and hitting those post notifications. And I invite everybody back to watch my next video.